Okay. And so we're live on YouTube, probably in the 20 seconds. I'm going to pull it up so I can watch it there as well. Okay, so we're live on YouTube.
We're on YouTube now.
Yep.
So you can do a clap test anytime.
Okay, I'm going to do the clap first. Here we go. No, it's really laggy. Alvaro, let's hear you clap. I don't hear anything. I think your mic is muted, Alvaro. Talk a little bit, Alvaro. Not hearing you.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes. Yes.
Sorry.
Clap
Yeah, I
again.
left it muted on StreamYard. So I have Zoom open, StreamYard, and YouTube. Where should I be? Oh wow, that's
I think you should just clap. Okay, yeah, you're ahead of it a little bit. And Luke? Do that again, Luke. Yeah, Luke, yours is way back.
So it,
All right, so I'm going to just do this for our broadcast now. So I think we should just be on Zoom now.
at mute mute StreamYard.
So, in my recollection is that there's always a big lag between YouTube and StreamYard.
Okay, so we're going to talk to each other on Zoom now, correct?
Yes.
okay. I'm coming.
Are we staying on Zoom or are we going back to StreamYard? Now I can't hear you, Luke. Now I can't hear anybody again. But I know what does it. I have to re-log in. Folks, are we live? Hi, welcome to the final episode of The Effects of Gravity. My name is Faye Dream. I'm an assistant professor in environmental studies and sciences at Ithaca College. I'm also a fiction writer and dabbles in theater, and I'm the developer and editor of an online journal of creative responses to environmental crises like ours currently. I'd like to invite you to write in comments and questions on YouTube Live. I'd like to encourage you to use headphones or earpods for the best sound quality. But before we go to the video, I'd like to introduce the developers of the Effects of Gravity, and ask that the last in line, my colleague Luke Keller, briefly comment on the project as a whole. But first, to Ava Domene, who is a Madrid-born, New York-based guitarist and composer operating at the convergence of various styles of contemporary music. His sound and compositions are influenced by jazz and contemporary Western classical traditions, as well as metal music. Alvaro also co-runs Iluso Records, an independent record label dedicated to supporting and creating creative new music. He's also the artistic director at the Singularity Music Series in Kingston, New York. Alvaro, would you like to do your work for the project?
Hello, how are you, Faye?
All right.
Could you repeat the last thing you said? Because I had a little glitch.
Could
Did you ask me something?
Could you speak to your own music or to the project as a whole, just briefly, before we go to the video?
Oh, sure. Well, this project is a very special endeavor that connected three different disciplines for the same goal, and by doing that, I think is first helping our own personal fulfillment in our artistic and scientific ways, and I really hope that we can take this to the stage where it belongs and start blowing up minds here and there.
Okay, fantastic. I'm excited for that. And the next is David Gonzalez, who's a nationally touring poet, musician, and storyteller. A fellow of the Joseph Campbell Foundation, David has received numerous commissions and awards, and his doctoral dissertation is focused on the intersection of improvised music and mythology within a psychotherapeutic context. David, do you have anything you'd like to bring up right now?
Out here, Faye, and this is the end of a long journey. We've been working on this in lockdown for, I don't know, like a year more. And we always knew we were going to land on planet Earth, and so here we are at our planet. And this is one of the harder ones for us to do because we know so much about it and we care so much about it. So looking forward to sharing it.
Okay. And our third collaborator is Luke Keller, who's a professor of physics and astronomy at Ithaca College in Ithaca, New York. His astrophysics passion is formation of stars and their planetary systems. Much of his teaching focuses on the nature of science and its role in our understanding of the universe, both near and far. Luke, what do you got to say for yourself?
Well, not much more than David and Alvaro. It's really exciting to be here at the the final episode. Of course, when we conceived of this project, it wasn't episodes at all. It was a live stage show. And the pandemic had us spinning for a while, and we decided to keep the creative process flowing, that we would offer it episodically on YouTube. And this is the final episode in that series.
Sounds fantastic. So I suppose we should just go on to the video of the lovely 8-minute video. Thank you, guys.
Earth is here. We are here. Organic, self-reflexive enhancements of density in the universe. We are composed of elements descended from hydrogen atoms, left to do what atoms do under the influence of gravity over vast stretches of time. Through fierce curiosity, systematic observation, and the scientific process, we have begun to appreciate what it took to form our Earth, our solar system, one of billions of planetary systems in our galaxy, and over 2 trillion other galaxies. Are we alone? We don't yet know for sure. Are we small and insignificant because our planet is one of billions of trillions? Our cosmic origins and our view of the universe can convince us that we are small, powerless, just along for the ride. Our awakening to an understanding of what it took to get from the primordial formation of galaxies and stars to planet Earth and then to us reminds us that we are also vastly aware, capable, and powerful effects of gravity. On the cosmic scale, we are distant observers. On the planetary scale, we are powerful participants. Changes and effects that are the size of human influence create changes and effects that are the size of planet Earth.
I speak for the living earth, for the micro-world, for the spores and seeds, for the pollen within a rose. I speak for the rivers, for swift churning currents, for the gentle mountain spring. I speak for boiling golden magma, the explosive eruption, the billowing ash, the changes. I speak for the canyons, for what is told in their cliffs, for the egret and the crow, the crane and the swallow. I speak for the mist that rises from the waterfall, for forsythia's first bloom, for the plump berries of mid-July, for the last red leaf, for the ice-glazed branch. I speak for the ground beneath our feet, for the fruit we eat, for the water we drink, for the fragrance of honeysuckle. I speak for the relation of all things, for the miracle of being. I speak for the living earth. Patriarchal, hierarchical power system dominates, decimates. This man-made schism, this barbarism, slices our ecological nature from our social nature. It's the system, the neurotically, compulsively expand or die system, like a psychotic Ouroboros, hoarding, misogynistic, and paranoid system that shits where it eats. Othering every other thing. A dominion of factories and pesticide-ridden farms, as if growth were an end in itself. You've got no Hey, so we're having some technical difficulties. We're going to run this again. Bruce, can you please stop the video?
Out of the cage, devour or be.
Thank you. And we're going to start that again. Sorry for the tech difficulties, everybody. There's some bandwidth issue. We're going to start it one more time. So Bruce is our producer, and ask you to please take the video out of the stream. I'm going to run it from my side and see if that makes a difference. So just bear with me for 1 second.
Earth is here. We are here. Organic, self-reflexive enhancements of density in the universe. We are composed of elements descended from hydrogen atoms, left to do what atoms do under the influence of gravity over vast stretches of time. Through fierce curiosity, systematic observation, and the scientific process, we have begun to appreciate what it took to form our Earth, our solar system, one of billions of planetary systems in our galaxy, and over 2 trillion other galaxies. Are we alone? We don't yet know for sure. Are we small and insignificant because our planet is one of billions of trillions? Our cosmic origins and our view of the universe can convince us that we are small, powerless, just along for the ride. Our awakening to an understanding of what it took to get from the primordial formation of galaxies and stars to planet Earth and then to us reminds us that we are also vastly aware, capable, and powerful effects of gravity. On the cosmic scale, we are distant observers. On the planetary scale, we are powerful participants. Changes and effects that are the size of human influence create changes and effects that are the size of planet Earth.
I speak for the living earth, for the micro-world, for the spores and seeds, for the pollen within a rose. I speak for the rivers, for swift churning currents, for the gentle mountain spring. I speak for boiling golden magma, the explosive eruption, the billowing ash, the changes. I speak for the canyons, for what is told in their cliffs, for the egret and the crow, the crane and the swallow. I speak for the mist that rises from the waterfall, for forsythia's first bloom, for the plump berries of mid-July, for the last red leaf, for the ice-glazed branch. I speak for the ground beneath our feet, for the fruit we eat, for the water we drink, for the fragrance of honeysuckle. I speak for the relation of all things, for the miracle of being. I speak for the living earth. Patriarchal, hierarchical power system dominates, decimates. This man-made schism, this barbarism, slices our ecological nature from our social nature. It's the system, the neurotically, compulsively expand or die system, like a psychotic Ouroboros, a hoarding, misogynistic, and paranoid system that shits where it eats, othering every other thing, a dominion of factories and pesticide-ridden farms, as if growth were an end in itself. You've got no home but the marketplace, bank vaults, and the golden toilet you call a throne. The beast is out of the cage, devour or be devoured. Endless growth, endless consumption, feckless, reckless, yo, fuck this. Corporations peddling ecological mirages with think green, be green, do green, all the while raking in the green. The grass grows greener, but meaner. Chromosomal aberrations rise through the food chain. Just watch a three-legged frog hop. From the University of the Streets, a message to the University of the Cheats. I have compassion for your pain. All life knows it. I have compassion for your ignorance. Institutionalized greed is a thing. But this systemic arrogance is willful. This myopic gluttony is a choice. Imperialism is doing us. It's ruinous to all of us.
curious and creative instinct to know and understand our origins has enabled us also to know and understand our planetary ecosystems and our place in them, our power to interfere or cooperate with those systems. We have a choice to appreciate and value, or to ignore and waste, to seek, to create and nurture, or to mostly consume and destroy. The natural thing to do is to do what the universe does so well and has done for billions of years. We continue with a different approach. We act and live as participants in the natural, creative process that enabled our own existence. Not because it's the right thing to do, but because it's the natural thing to do.
Hiking up the desert hill at dusk, tiptoeing from one gold-flecked garnet rock to the next so as not to trample the delicate living sea of saffron flowers, so as to get a vista of the saguaros against the evening's horizon, to remember that life is fleeting and eternal, that this earth is the miracle of our near space, that a witness sharpens the sting of magnificence, that love opens the doors of perception, and that what can be seen from a blooming wilderness ridge can change a human forever.
Hi. Just a brief reaction to this video. Speaking as someone who teaches and issues in environmental justice and environmental communication through creative work, I was pleased to see this video strike so hard at the social injustice on this planet, as well as the political background that causes so many misunderstandings, misapplications, and downright subversions of science. From the far and distorts our understanding of the universe from the far reaches of the universe that we study only through quasar pulses, down to the existential questions we face when looking at the rare, unpolluted night sky. But I'd like to start with the power and drama of the music that we heard, the overwhelming, dramatic focus of that. And I've heard people talk about the continuum of density in their music, Alvaro, but especially in this new video. But more than that, for me, I was struck by how in this video, the music seems so much in tune with the journey of the video itself, almost to be in constant bidirectional communication from what we see on the screen and the narrative that we hear and the science that we're introduced to, as opposed to the music being a separate voice. I'm curious as to the choices you made during this composition and performance. Can you speak to that?
Sure. Can everyone hear me okay? Well, for this one, dynamics and density, amount of notes and type of notes play a huge part in how we perceive the overall the result of the overall piece. So basically, the most powerful thing you can do musically is sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to do nothing, basically. to have intentional silence. That's where I start. So I think that we, as speaking for myself, as composers, performers, we make the conscious choice to introduce sound, and thus we break silence. So we should be aiming to achieve the solemnity that silence has with whatever musical ideas we're deciding to express ourselves at the time. So having said that, and bringing it to this particular score, something quiet and continuous can help with the atmosphere of time and place during the piece, but also function as a neutral background padding for the spoken sections, so that way music can fluctuate between both tension and release, but without overpowering or distracting from the spoken poetry or science. So again, dynamics and density play a big factor in contributing to the build up, and by doing that, helping with conveying the intended emotions to the audience from the text. So tying up the beginning to the end of the piece, sometimes there's nothing more evocative of grandiosity, musically speaking, than a big, powerful, distorted, and ridiculously loud guitar chord, like the one at the very end, right? So those are the main factors in terms of dynamics for this one.
Okay, thank you. And today, first, a reminder to everyone to please post questions in the chat on YouTube Live. But David, it's partly the same question to you, but in a different way. In the previous videos in this series, the narrative, although interpretive or video and science, has seemed somewhat separate. But here, the poetry strikes hard at the social justice and the environmental concerns. And the poetry has almost become very political. Indeed, it is political. It takes a stand in support of ecosystem and support of humans so dependent on the system. In much creative narrative work, whether poetry or fiction, there is critical pushback that the political is not creative, and that it is often seen as overly emotional or preachy, and specifically that poetry and fiction that is political is not art. Can you speak to that criticism and to your own position in work like this and in this video? You're muted, I think.
There's that old adage that every act is political. It's informed by a past, it's engaged in a present, and it has an impact in the future. And as social beings involved with all kinds of constructs, what we do contributes to where we're going. And so for me, this was a challenging piece to do because there's this space of sort of transcendental beauty in the beginning. I speak for the living earth. And it's kind of audacious, but I think people get it. I bring attention to the miracle of our near space, as someone once told me. This is the only space we can touch, right? So you don't need, well, now that they've brought something back from an asteroid bit of dust, but I mean, it's not a flower, you know what I mean? But the outrage is the other side. This is the protective side. This is the side where anger is to draw a line. When someone's pushing on your boundaries, you set a boundary, right? And we're in a constant state of attack. If you're looking and feeling into the world, everywhere you look, basically, there's an assault. And we just endured an administration for 4 years was an assault on the most precious thing, on life itself, and I don't know about y'all, but when this election shifted, I shed tears, releasing the heaviness of holding my boundaries against this barrage of insults, not only to character, but to the earth itself. And so there's a line in there, shitting where we eat. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. And I got to thank Alvaro, who turned me on to the great work in the field of social ecology, Murray Bookchin, and it just really gave me a beautiful jolt to write this last section, where there's a space where outrage is the only thing that can be done. There are people rioting in the streets today, and that boy was killed, just hours ago. Duante Wright was killed not long ago. There's a place for outrage. It's action. It draws a boundary. And in terms of our piece, we started with the biggest constructs of the universe. You can't be outrageous. You can be outraged. You just be in wonder about it, right? But one of my professors once told me, coaches, really, a writing coach, wonderful Miguel Algarin from the New York Poets Cafe, he said, if you're going to curse in a poem, you better well have earned it. So this is finally at the end of our 6 episodes. There's a place for outrage because it's necessary to awaken, but also to set a boundary. I don't know if that's a long-winded answer. I'm not even sure it gets to what you were asking, but that's where I went.
Okay. I have a question for Luke. I have to say that I really like the structure of this video. And I'd love to see this video actually begin your series rather than end it. For the first time in the series, I felt that science was giving me, a human, a reason to learn, to know, to think about larger existential questions, and even to care. And I found it oddly calming despite the disruptions and the horrific events we are facing and we're seeing in the video. Can you speak to how you as a person, as a scientist, came to such an odd, soothing space about what's happening to us and why that space might be necessary for change?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the arc of the project, we didn't know what we were going to do at the end when we started. And the project was intended initially to inspire a very deep appreciation for the scientific process by showing people what we've learned about the universe at various scales. And we started at the largest scale, the large scale structure of the entire universe, and we have stepped down till we're at the planet. And then at the end here, I think Alvaro said at the beginning, this was the most difficult episode to put together. And that's because we wanted to continue with that. And when you get to Earth, you see that we are, I said, what we're doing isn't natural. So the goal is to maintain that the good feeling of awe and inspiration and appreciation for what we're able to learn about nature through the scientific process, and to focus that on how we have the power to change what we're doing to planet Earth. So we basically, we can't afford to be in the planetarium anymore. Like just having a more sort of ethereal experience, and yet we're still in the universe. We're still in the planetarium, right? We're still in the big picture also. So we're trying to balance that.
Okay. I'll go from there. Back to Alvaro for another question. This is more about your creative process per se, and about the intersection between your experience of our impending climate catastrophe and all the poisoning of our water and soil and air. Did that tilt your approach or otherwise alter your own emotional reaction to your creative process? Can you speak to that?
Mm-hmm. I think my creative process wasn't different, but I found that the psychoacoustic elements of the music were going to be the most crucial of all these episodes, and perhaps the trickiest to balance. So the challenge to me on this one was to be correct, to be efficacious in a way at assisting David's text and performance, at evoking both the severity of the situation in which we find ourselves, which if you just showed up, we're talking about the global environmental collapse due to the inherently anti-ecological nature of capitalist production. Let's be bold and clear. So transmitting that, the doomerism of that, but also transmitting hope and some motivation for change, rooted in the awareness of the miraculous accident of our mere existence as a species. So that is what my aim was, to channel that, to help David channel that through his work on this one. So my process itself is the same, but I am hyper aware of these things, to steer the nuance of what I do in the right direction, so that I
Well,
don't go against David's intention.
well, Alvaro laid down this beautiful track, and in other episodes, we kind of worked a little more separately, but in this one, we really were collaborated. So Alvaro sent me this energy, and I was riding the energy of it. So there was a lot going on in that way. Oftentimes it's been the other way around. Well, I will send him a track, and he'll kind of write around it. But the music really drove this one. And I have to say, just Alvaro, in his political consciousness, really was driving a lot of what I was thinking about, and really helped me to reframe and to rethink and get re-inspired around some of these things. So it's my boy.
But it does feel like a very collaborative piece between the music and the narrative. And so I'll come back to you, David, about the performance of this piece. Often although poems from marginalized populations and poems from poets of color are often heavily performative and highly emotive. I'm Hispanic, and I've seen people come up and do this entire song through poetry, the entire performance of it. But such positioning is not common among many general audience public readings that do not come from poets of color or from other cultures. In comparison to the other readings in the series, the level of serious performance here seems very much stronger and far more deliberately emotive. Can you speak to the decisions you made in performing this piece? Continue on with the music if you wish.
Yeah, I mean, there's raw emotion. In the earlier episodes, there's speculation, there's imagination, there's story. I was using lots of an analogy and metaphor, but we're home now, right? This is where the heart lives. This is where I'm in touch with the earth. I'm in touch with it. I grew up in New York. I grew up in the city. The river I used to see was the Bronx River, and the Bronx River was filled with garbage. That was like my first river, was the Bronx River. I know they're cleaning it up, but I mean, tires and styrofoam and crap, So I've come a long way. I've become. I live in the country. I'm out in the country. I'm going hiking in the Adirondacks next week. My love is there. I've grown to that. But to answer your question, this is where emotion is, right? This is where I've moved from a space of speculation and metaphor and into a place of just feeling, and so of course it's there. I used to participate, I mentioned it already, the New Yorican Poets Cafe. If you don't know it, check it out. But I was there back in the day, and the whole, before the poetry slam world came to be, and before, all those, what was it, on MTV poetry things, and, when it was gritty and unpublicized. I'm so happy the poetry has become, ubiquitous in the world. It wasn't that, just in case for the young people who are in the audience, it wasn't always that way. Poetry had really gone underground, and now we're in a kind of flowering of a poetic presence, and it's wonderful. One of the beautiful things for me in the project has been, in this last episode, to land. in the space of outrage, as we were saying before, but also a space of, if I will, again, to use the word again, just transcendence. Here we are in the miracle of our near space, and it's messed, and it's glorious, and it's in crisis, and so it's an engagement with the heart. It's an engagement with the need to speak, and you know. I am not a rapper. I didn't want to. I'm not I'm not a rap. But Alvaro's groove gave me an energy. It was a motor to it, and it allowed me to. I guess I just flow. It allowed me to ride it. You know what I'm saying? I was riding it, and I'm informed by people. I was just watching this documentary on Notorious B.I.G. and I'm a fan of Kendrick Lamar. I'm not like completely brain dead when it comes to this beautiful art, but I know great things when I hear them, and they're over there. I hear it and I feel it. But what I was trying to do was just connect to what Alvaro was laying down for me.
Okay. Building on the creative process that you so wonderfully described to review, I'd like to ask Luke a similar question, but coming out of the video, you actually make a case for the creative process when you talk about the natural thing to do, seeking of other different approaches, which is a creative process, and it's that looking for the next thing, the natural thing to do. And in a sense, when you use that phrase, though, you're actually personifying nature and saying that nature is engaged in such a critical creative process. And that some folks might see this as nature having some sort of crazy free will, of creative choice, of intelligent design. And others might insist that if nature can engage in a creative process at all, then that means that all creative process must therefore be simply a matter of insentient logic, much like the kind that governs evolution. Can you say more on what you meant by this phrasing?
Yeah, so I think I think in many ways the universe is one of the most striking examples of the kind of creativity where you mostly engage in failure until something happens that inspires building something. So that's the sense. So I don't have a problem calling the universe creative. I don't think that I'm not suggesting that it is an intelligent designer doing the creating. It's a process. So it's a natural. The creation is a natural process. Supernatural is a null word. That's something that one of my professors said a long time ago that has stuck with me. So the creativity of the universe is the processes that we see, that we witness happening, that have happened, and that continue to happen, so my point in saying that the natural thing to do would be to try a different approach, or to use a different approach, is to take a lesson from the example of the natural creative processes that we witness. So basically, it takes work, energy, and power to be destructive and wasteful. And although it takes intention to be the opposite of those things, it actually doesn't take as much energy. I mean, quite literally, from the physics point of view. And that's the sense in which I called this, regardless of whether it's the right thing to do, because there's a very common response to the universe story, which is we're just nothing. Right? It doesn't matter what we do on this planet. It is literally one of billions of trillions of planets. Maybe some of those others figured it out, and I don't believe that. And so I think that that Earth is the focus, is the result of this natural creative process, and we're part of that. We're not separate from that. The cultures on this planet that know that already and have known it for millennia have done a much better job of living on the planet and in the environment and being part of it in creative and and constructive ways. So that's what I'm saying is that's where we need to be.
Okay. You have a question on the screen. Do you engage in activism beyond the classroom in this type of creative work? If so, what kind do you engage in and or others encourage others to do? I believe that would go to Luke because you are the only person I know that's teaching. Is that true?
It's not actually true, but I'm happy to go first. Both of my other
Okay.
colleagues are teachers in various ways,
Okay.
both formally and informally. So technically, I suppose at the moment, I am not engaging in activism outside of the classroom, except for this project, which I believe is activism. I suck as an activist. I'll just be honest. I have been an activist in the past, and I've worked very hard at it. And I have found it to be just not the best way for me to use my energy and my talents in struggles for justice, in struggles for change. And in the classroom, I found a lot more efficacy, but also taking what I do in the classroom into venues like this, or into public writing, for example. That is the way that I'm trying. I mean, my crusade is the scientific process. So many of the discussions and disagreements and misunderstandings are for example, in climate, are a misunderstanding of the scientific process.
The others of you who are teachers, do you want to speak to this question from Laura?
Alvaro, you want to go?
Sure. I'm involved in two mutual aid groups. One is local and the other one is international. I'm also a member of the IWW, which is the Industrial Workers of the World, a radical union. Everything we do is connected to the environment, which is connected to the system of production under which we currently live. I'm gonna drop a link in on the YouTube chat for a website of one of the campaigns from one of these mutual aid groups. It's called genstrike.org, and it's gathering activists from all over the world. The Global South is leading this, as it should be. And I'm gonna drop that link because there's a lot of information there. If you want to get involved, that's a very, very cool way to get plugged in. So I'm gonna drop the link in there in a second. And so besides that, everything that I do is political. I am not shy to speak my mind, because we have run out of time, really. I mean, that's just the truth.
It is the truth. We are running out of
We
time
have
and
to-
we are
we have
really
to-
screwed.
Yeah, we have to both help people from helping them eat. So there's a lot of hungry people. Besides that, we should also work in trying to politically educate people, to help them become aware of how and why things are the way they're going, and offer an alternative, which is usually not that discussed. There's a lot of complaining, but there isn't much productive conversation there. It should be more. So I always trying to do my best at learning how to communicate with people who are not familiar with other possibilities, to meet their other level, and hopefully get them to see things a little differently. Start a ripple effect. That's what we need. You can't force this. That's the thing. It needs to be, we need to get them on board.
David, you want to speak to activism as well, and I'll add a follow-up question, which is actually part of what Alvaro is bringing up, that in the United States, which is not the global issue, but in the United States, we're involved in a very serious cultural battle over preserving the ecosystem that supports human life, and it will affect the globe as well as our nation. How do you see yourself fitting into issues of activism? as a teacher or as a poet? Continue on.
Well, I'm hands-on, I guess. I I cared for a trail. I'm out in the woods. You know, I'm cleaning, I'm touching, I'm cutting, I'm clearing, I'm reporting. I'm got my hands dirty. I carry a saw. I volunteered and maintained this trail for 10 years. My work is largely with young people, and you might say that it's tangential, but what I do is try and find ways to liberate the imagination of young people and to bring heart and soul into that so that they become more available to make conscious choices as opposed to being coerced and manipulated by a grinding system. It's the system, you know. I got to say, when Trump was elected, I volunteered for the ACLU. I'm involved. I'm on the board of directors of an organization that is addressing here locally in Hudson Valley, addressing police violence in the community. You know, so I'm doing things in a very personal way, mano a mano, as well as in the work that I do. You know, I have a clear mission about the projects I get involved in. I don't think of myself as an entertainer at all. I think of myself as someone who has a responsibility to engage and to bring questions and also joy. Joy is liberating. Joy brings us into a place. Oh, if I feel joy, where are the places where it's not? And then let's ask about that. You know, it's empowering. I do a tremendous amount of work also with underserved communities, most recently in the American Southwest, with indigenous farm worker communities in the Coachella Valley. A very deep, long project there, empowering folks to have a voice through the arts in their community. So anyway, it's a long list of things that I've been doing in that way. I was just line up with Alvaro and Luke on this project because I have come to a deeper appreciation of my world, the world I inhabit through this project, the rarity, the miracle of this planet. Like, it's become more precious to me, and it's thanks to Luke really to help us see this big story, you know. And then we come down here, and then we look from this perspective. So my hope for our project, The Effects of Gravity, was that it will be, yes, engaging and stimulating and aesthetically beautiful, but that it'll bring these two sides to the sword, a sense of profound appreciation and a sense of outrage that will bring folks into a space of moving forward, wherever they are, to engage with. Having said that, I think we're almost out of time. You said you had another question there, Faye, before we run?
I have one more question because of the importance of what Alvaro was bringing up, the very crisis we are facing. We are facing extinction. And when you talk about the young people being active, the 13-year-olds and 14-year-olds are some of the most outspoken climate activists we have globally because of what we are facing. And part of that will be environmental communication. Is there any piece of advice you'd like to give to the 13-year-olds, the 14-year-olds, the young people, as well as the adults of college age who are so facing and so terrified of what we're doing, as well as anything else you'd like to say about the universe itself, how that might fit? Alvaro, do you want to have a final sentence or two?
I was gonna ask if you could repeat what you said. Sorry, because
Yes,
the
that's
sound
all
got a
right.
little glitchy. I was understanding just random words, but not the whole thing. Sorry.
Because we face such an immense crisis on this planet, a crisis of extinction, and because we have so many very young people and who are some of the most active climate activists, it may seem looking at the universe is useless. It may seem that we should be facing other things, and we are. Is there anything you'd like to add as advice to young people and 13 and 14-year-olds coming up, or to the young adults, and I don't mean young adults, I mean, the adults of college age who are working through these crises and looking at science, looking at your communication, looking at activism in any way. I'm sorry, I'm hearing music from the street and I'm hearing you guys here, so it's like a combination.
Well, to be honest, to be perfectly frank, I don't think I am qualified to give advice about anything. But if I can say something is try to bond with your community, try to establish community networks, your neighbors, talk to your neighbors. A community that is strong is a big thing. Is quite a challenge for the from the local system to the big one. If communities engage, that's one of the main problems, that we are very alienated from each other. So if there's something I can say besides question authority, is get on with your neighbors. Find out what they do.
And
Help. Get them to help you. Mutually look that up.
Okay. And to look the same question, but in terms of science, we need to actually find a way of communicating science. Do you have a piece of advice?
All right.
You're muted.
Something that I tell my students, so my college students, a lot, but I also tell when I visit, I love to visit. My favorite is elementary school. And they get this more quickly. Believe your own experience of nature. You are an expert at living in nature and in this universe, and you bring a lot of experience and observation that is valuable to whatever conversation you're having. And so even when you're learning something new that may challenge what you know, don't forget that you know a lot and that is valuable. It really doesn't matter the age.
Okay. David, to you.
Yeah, I it's similar to what Luke said. I think you just encourage everyone really to trust their experience. That we are experts of our own experience. We know what we know. We don't know what we don't know, but we know what we know. And when we see things that we feel are wrong, they're probably wrong. When we see things that are unjust, they're probably unjust. I have been so moved by the young people I've come in touch with who have so much energy and clarity around the purpose to work on this issue, and I don't know what else to say. Trust that you know what you know, and move from there.
So we're now at the end. Are there any further questions from the chat or from you two?
Not at the moment. No, thank you.
Then thank you. I appreciate this is my understanding that running out of time. I appreciate the opportunity to host tonight. It's been fun. I hope everyone has enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thank you, Faye.
Faye, do you have is there something you want to say about your work before we sign
my
off?
work, yeah, sure. I have been, and I'm still a very strong environmental justice activist and environmental activist as a whole. I'm a fiction writer. I'm a teacher. And I think that communicating what we see and communicating what's about to happen to us as a species is vitally important. I also run a journal of creative responses to the environmental crisis. That journal is Alluvion.space. We take environmental art, cartoons, and fiction, and we're still accepting for the upcoming solstice issue. Stay sane.
Thank you. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. And a big shout out to our producer behind the scenes, Bruce. We've had our hands full today with technical difficulties, but thanks for hanging in there, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you for watching.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.